Right. Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Kozlowski with episode 13 of the K Stream podcast, Lucky 13. And I am excited to be joined today by another teacher. Earlier this week, I had an old college classmate on who does some more VIP kid out school type work. And today, I'm excited to have a middle school STEM teacher on and noticed, obviously he's doing some great stuff in the virtual classroom, but caught my attention from the videos he was posting on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. So he's been doing some awesome work in that space, and had to have him on. He is Thom Gibson. Thom, thanks so much for joining. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's gonna. I'm looking forward to just chatting tech because usually it's mainly just the education side. I'm like, I like to talk about technology and streaming and video and audio stuff too.
Yes, absolutely. And for those that aren't aware, Thom you're in Austin, right?
Yeah, Austin, Texas.
And so, he's been, along with virtual teaching and everything that the education world is going through, Thom also just went through that massive snow, ice
Snowmageddon,
catastrophe.
yeah.
And so you guys coming out of it now, right? You had like 70-degree weather the other day.
Yeah, yesterday it was 81, and a week ago it was about 4. So it was like kind of bizarre, but we fared out. We fared okay. Our power went out for about an hour and a half, but my parents down in San Antonio, where it's like 4 hours or 4 days, and then like 2 days without water, and it's just like what is going on? But all is well in Texas again. They flipped the switch back on. We have water. We're not having to boil our water, and we're enjoying our 81-degree weather in February again.
Awesome. Yes, glad to hear everybody's kind of coming around. And Thom, I appreciate you. We talking about this a little bit before we started, but I appreciate you fitting this in. I know you're about to get back in or start hybrid learning with the school you're at, and of course, wish you the best of luck with that. So
Thank you.
I won't take up too much of your time. I know
no
there's
problem.
probably a ton of preparation to get to, but
I'm just hoping, like, maybe if I just ignore it, the problem will go away.
just don't pretend it's not happening.
Yeah, I'll just show up and just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are actually, have that mindset, right? So first, Thom, can you just kind of tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into teaching?
Yeah, I actually studied audio engineering in college, and then I graduated December 2010 with a bachelor's of science in sound recording technology. And a lot of my colleagues were like, I guess I'll go work for free in a studio somewhere in a big city and maybe get a job opportunity. And I was like, that's not really what I want to do. Even when I was studying and doing my program, like, I wasn't that excited about working on like other people's music or video or anything. It was always like my own projects that got me the most excited. And so I knew I didn't really want to go down the audio engineer route. And a bunch of little things were like pointing me to teaching. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll teach and see what happens. And it was funny because I was originally considering psychology to be a counselor, but they decided for a lot of like school counselor positions, it's like you have to teach for 2 years. I was like, teach for 2 years? I don't want to do that. But then here I am, like in my 10th year of education. But then I got an alternative certification, became a 5th grade teacher in the fall of 2011. And even kind of like right from the beginning, kind of incorporating some of the video and the audio, because I remember when I was in my teacher training, there was a 4th grade teacher that was kind of telling us this idea that he did, this project that he did with his students called Dear World. And the students would finish the sentence, Dear World, like in 3 to 5 sentences, 3 to 5 words, what would you say? And then they would write their message on a piece of paper or on their arm or on their face or something like that. And he would make a video of it, and then he would share it with like the families and stuff. And I had done, in addition to audio stuff, I was like the guy that kind of was carrying around a little flip cam all through college and filming stuff before like vlogs were a thing, before YouTube was a thing and people were posting stuff on YouTube. And so I was like, well, this kind of seems pretty fun. And so I did that, and like that was one of my first, videos on my teacher YouTube channel back in like 2011, 2012. And ever since then has been continue to do video and audio and learning more. And ironically, a lot of the stuff that I know now, it's like I learned after the fact. Like most of the stuff in college was like analog to digital converters and like acoustics and stuff. And like I had a hard enough time like remembering it like in the moment. Like 10 years later, like none of that stuff has really stuck with me. I did learn about compressors and EQ. That was like really good. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that I know now was just like most people, it's like I went onto YouTube and I'm like, what's the difference between like f-stop and aperture, like and shutter speed, and f-stop and aperture actually are the same thing. But like what were all the things with cameras and other things with microphone that I hadn't learned. And so that's kind of just been my journey kind of into the classroom, and how tech has kind of been there from the beginning.
So you have always found a way to kind of work that passion and interest of yours into what you do as a teacher?
Yeah. I think the kids actually enjoy class more when they see like you getting pretty jazzed up and you sharing the things that you're into. Whether it's, for me, it was like audio and video, but for other teachers, maybe it's like gardening and planting, and they've got like their plants in the classroom and they're telling the kids all about them and helping the kids, inviting the kids to be a part of that. I think the kids are just really, they want to see people that are passionate about stuff, and they need people like that in their lives. And so for me, it was just always like audio and tech and video and stuff, and just finding a way to bring it into the classroom and to share my classroom with a wider audience as well.
That's awesome. And so talk about your, pre-COVID, pre-virtual learning. What was your YouTube channel and anything you were kind of sharing online? What was your intention with all that? What kind of messages were you trying to get across?
I started it around 2015, the YouTube channel, because I started watching a bunch of Casey Neistat videos and was super inspired. But like almost everybody else on YouTube now is like, Casey Neistat can do this. I want to do this too. And it started out just kind of I was at the time kind of blogging every week, and I was like, well, why don't I just do a video blog? And that's when I actually started to kind of consistently post. I had posted some one-off videos like years prior, but the beginning was just like, I just want to have fun with this channel. Most of it's going to be like teaching related, but I had videos on like the cinematic settings for a Canon T3i, which is like one of the most viewed videos on my channel, and like how to get the best settings for the Rode Video Mic Pro, on a DSLR for any context. And I was doing a lot of like filmmaking tutorials and video editing tutorials and how to teach prime numbers in 7th grade, and like went to visit, went to China on a trip with my wife, and here's like an eight series, 8-episode series on that. And so it was just all over the place. Like I remember one of the most exciting videos was me and a couple friends going around Austin. Austin's known for breakfast tacos, like that's our thing. And we just went to a ton of breakfast taco places and like rated their best tacos and had like a rubric that we were grading them, and so like I had all sorts of stuff on my channel, and for a long time that was the goal, just have fun making videos. And then around late 2018, I was like, I kind of want to see if I can make this teacher thing, this teacher online brand into a business. And I think right now with my YouTube channel, like I'm having fun, but now I'm ready to kind of, focus it. And I think a lot of people at first were really like kind of confused what my channel was all about, because there really wasn't a focus. And so I had people that were subscribing for all different types of reasons. But then, whenever I would show up in their subscription feed, they would be like, I'm not interested in the teaching stuff. I just thought the China vlogs were cool, or that the filmmaking tutorials were helpful. And so it wasn't until then that I kind of tried to focus, to figure out who my videos were for in the first place, as opposed to just making it, fun and for me. And so that's kind of when I started to focus it. But still, like some of the most popular videos are the ones that I posted in 2015, 2016 on cameras and video and microphones and stuff like that. And so I keep them up there because, a lot of teachers are also now looking for that kind of stuff. And so maybe if they come to the channel homepage and see that I'm also a teacher, it'll be something that like, oh, teacher and this filmmaking stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah, you were solving problems for people, and now, like you said, yeah, more and more people are probably Googling those questions. So
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense. And talk a little bit about you touched on it. So you are a full-time teacher, and you also, like you said, you kind of started to turn some of this into your own business. So what do you do in the kind of consulting space?
Yeah, as an education consultant, I kind of see it all as just like I'm training and helping and supporting teachers through whether it's the YouTube channel, Instagram, LinkedIn. With the consulting, it looks like professional development. What was cool is like I got a really great opportunity this past summer. There was, all the conferences went online, and one of the people in the teacher podcast, training space, Carrie Conover with Educators to Educators. She puts on this massive summer and winter digital virtual conference, and she's been doing this for a little while. And what's funny is like, even though she's, a podcaster and has this Educators to Educators brand, I know last summer she had more registrants for her virtual conference than the massive ISTE conference, which is a huge, usually a really one of the biggest educational technology conferences in the country, but given that they were just trying to like scramble to kind of make something happen virtually, where she already kind of had that reputation. I did a video for her conference, a pre-recorded video that went live when the conference went live. And a principal saw that video, a principal out in California, and was like, hey, I love what you're doing. Do you offer like live training and everything? And so it's like, yeah, of course I actually do, this, and I can provide, this XYZ training for your teachers. What is it that you're looking for? And she's like, I really loved your energy, and I just wanted to bottle that up and just share it with my staff, And so even the things like, even though I thought what she was wanting training for, like the thing that I spoke about at the conference, what I ended up doing for her and her staff ended up just being like, well, right now I think my teachers need help with time management, and so we did a big workshop on time management. And right now I think my teachers need help with classroom management and building classroom culture, and so we talked about that. And then I've got opportunities from different companies. They'll see, my content online, and then one company they're trying to create a kind of like an after school STEM platform, but right now they're trying to get a big grant to do it, and they're like, well, before we can do the grant, we have to fill out this thing for the grant, and we have to say, who our advisors and our consultants are. And so they reached out to me, and so if they do get the grant, I'll be coming on with them throughout this year to kind of help them out and just give them the perspective of a middle school educator of like what's going to work, what I think is not going to work, and provide some insights there. And so the online space, being in the online space, it's really hard. Like not as many opportunities have come, from doing YouTube consistently and being on Instagram and LinkedIn as I would have liked, but it definitely has led to some opportunities. And it's definitely, it's a grind to just continue to try to get yourself in front of people as much as you can, because it's a lot of like consulting and professional development. It's not something that I can just send a cold email and say, I'd love to do professional development with you. Typically, because I have friends that are in this space that do this full time, the consulting full time, and they say 9 out of 10 times that we do consulting and PD, it's, admin and principals and superintendents coming to us. Well, how do they know to come to you? Well, you need to be out there in front, whether you're performing or whether you're presenting at conferences or posting on social media. And so that's kind of like the model right now of just kind of continually trying to put valuable content and repurposing content from, my YouTube channel. I know you've seen it on LinkedIn, where I'll post a video on YouTube on Sunday, but then I'll break that video up into maybe 4 or 5 different pieces, and then post one of those pieces on LinkedIn with the context of it. So that way I'm not having to recreate the wheel, but I can use, the pillar content, as it's called, and then spread it out over social media in a way that makes sense and is contextualized to that social media platform.
Yeah, using that kind of snackable, more social friendly content and keeping yourself out there, like you said, to kind of maintain that, industry expert, kind of establish yourself as one, one of the industry experts in the
Yeah.
field. So, flashback almost a year or so, almost a year now, when coronavirus took over the world and really, especially flipped the education world upside down. I want to talk about, just so you as a person who was already interested in video and knew the ins and outs of how probably stuff like Zoom worked or similar platforms. Um, what was kind of your mindset heading into this new virtual learning space? And, what did you kind of learn along the way, like kind of add pieces along the way that you thought might help the virtual experience for your students? What was that journey kind of like in getting to where you are now with, and we'll talk about some of the equipment you have too, but I know your setup is pretty cool.
Yeah. What's interesting is our daughter, our first daughter, she was born almost exactly a year from now, February 28th of last year.
Wow.
And so she was born 2 weeks before coronavirus was declared a pandemic. And so I was actually on paternity leave when my school went remote. And so I had written all these sub plans for this substitute that was going to be there for me, and then had to like scrap those plans and be like, okay, I have to train and give plans for a teacher that's going to be teaching remotely, even though I've never done that myself. And so it was kind of interesting. I was kind of just trying to be like, did what I gave you, was that way too much work? Was that not enough work? Like my time gauge of like how long things would take, I didn't have that, because typically I would know. And so I was on paternity leave for about those first, 6 weeks of remote teaching. But I was still kind of like, listening. I was really curious. And this was like, this whole remote teaching thing was pretty fascinating to me. So even like on paternity leave, I was listening to podcasts and watching like YouTube videos of teachers that were doing it and everything. And, I was thinking like, well, how do I want to do it? Because I had done, live streaming and of course done the YouTube videos before. And so it was like, I think having that background definitely made the transition a lot easier for me, but I had never used Zoom. And so that was definitely a learning curve for me of just kind of figuring out what's the best way that I can. And there's so many things that I don't like about Zoom, from just like how you screen share and then screens move and things are overlaying other things. And you're like, maybe there's ways I can fix this in the settings. And nope, there's not. And then you move to a breakout room and your participant panel and your chat panel are gone. And now you have to like click on them and pull them back up again. It's like, I don't know why it does a lot of the things that it does. Even with dual monitors, like I feel like I've optimized it as much as I can, and it's still such a headache. And so then I'm like, gosh, I feel like with this tech, it feels, a lot more, I'm a lot more comfortable with it. I can't imagine like how much of a struggle it is for the teachers that are not comfortable with tech and are not always like thinking about cameras and workflow and microphones and all sorts of stuff, which is why a lot of the stuff that I've been creating, I'm like, teachers don't even know where to start when it comes to like improving their audio, so creating videos on like different microphones, or even if you don't buy a new microphone, just like get the microphone or whatever you have closer to your mouth, don't stand in the back of the room because it's going to sound terrible, and, tips on Zoom and things like that. And so the learning process a lot was really figuring out Zoom and thinking like, how do I keep these kids engaged, and then there's like in the teacher online world, there's a big, debate on, do you make your kids keep their cameras on? Do you let them turn it off? Like people say like, oh, I feel like I'm talking to an empty room and I want to know that they're still with me. But it's like, just because a student's camera's on doesn't mean they're still not like playing Minecraft, like turning cameras on doesn't automatically mean engagement. But, so like, I feel I have not been as consistent. Like one of the names of the games with teaching is consistency. And some days I'm like, it's fine, and then other days I'm like, everybody cameras on. I'm tired of this. I need to see no one's answering my questions. And so just kind of like figuring out the best practices with that. And then it did give me an excuse to kind of like buy more equipment, because I'm like, well, I'm going to be home. I'm going to be like figuring, I'm spending a lot of time on my computer. I've wanted to get a lot of this stuff before. I just did not have a reason to. I wasn't like consistently going live or anything like that. But I'm like, well, I'm live like 4 hours a day now with my classes. And so some of the things that I got that were really helpful, the first thing that I got was the Elgato Stream Deck, which I got the idea from another teacher who had posted about it. I knew what it was, but I'm like, I can remember quick keys and I can kind of bookmark stuff. And I didn't realize how much of a game changer it really was going to be to have those tactile buttons right there. And the fact that like when I open Zoom, a different set of buttons can be present than when I'm in Chrome or when I'm in Premiere Pro. So that was really helpful. And like even being able to push a button, like, yeah, I can put stuff in my bookmarks bar, but if I have Zoom up, like to do that, I'm going to have to open up Chrome and then click on my bookmarks bar, as opposed to just looking down, pushing a button. It opens up Chrome, and then whatever I'm looking for and whatever I need is there. And how one button can open up as many websites as I'd like, as opposed to like, I had like 4 calendars that I needed to do for my lesson plans, one for each class. And so I used to have like the folder that had all of them bookmarked, but now I push that button, it opens up Chrome and boom, 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 all 4 of those calendars open up. So the Stream Deck was a big game changer. I started adding sound effects to it. I would play some right now, but I recently moved from PC to Mac. And PC had this nice software called Voice Meter, Meeter, which was like a virtual soundboard that you could route audio anywhere, and it was free. And so that way I could basically make my computer sound mixed with my microphone as like the output audio without having to do like go to screen share computer audio only. And so I was able to do sound effects and do all that other stuff, even though I wasn't screen sharing audio. Unfortunately, Mac doesn't have a free software to do that. They have something called Loopback, I believe, where you can kind of like route all of your audio and decide where it all goes. And so I was like, that's $100 though, and I'm about to finish remote teaching. Do I want to buy that? But the sound effects have been super fun. There's just like air horn sound effects and applause and Jeopardy music when I'm waiting for students to finish stuff up. And then the second piece of equipment that I got that's been pretty fun is the A10 Mini. And so right now I am talking on my Canon SL2, and I've got the battery power, it's battery power, so it doesn't, I don't have to keep replacing the batteries. With the A10 Mini, I can just switch over to my GoPro over in this corner, which is kind of nice. The students kind of get that fuller view. I'm not here very often, but I do like having this. It's kind of like when I tell my students, like, all right, you got 30 seconds to do something, I'll put the music going, and then I'll just kind of go to this camera view, almost like, I'm stepping back a little bit, and then students can go. And then when it's like, all right, now let's go ahead and get started with what we were doing, and then I switch back to the normal one. And so that's really nice. And then whenever I go live on YouTube, because I have a new YouTube live stream show on Wednesday mornings, where I'm kind of that's targeted to teachers as well and matches the content that I'm putting up there right now. I can also, I don't have my laptop plugged in. I can make my laptop, another video source, and then, have like a little picture-in-picture. So right now it's picture-in-picture of the same thing, but I would normally have like the laptop. It does a lot of the stuff that StreamYard would do that we're on, but I would have like where the main picture is my laptop. And that's really nice because that ends up being, now I'm able to stream with my Mac Mini, but I'm not bogging it down by also doing the work that I'm trying to display on my desktop. So everything that I'm showing is actually coming from my laptop, while my Mac Mini is taking care of the stream and all sorts of things like that. And so that's been pretty fun. I'm trying to think through like the best way to continue to use it, even though when I'm not remote teaching, besides doing live streams. But I think I'll be able to also just create some videos if I don't want to get out like my separate camera and do something that's like really edited in Premiere Pro. I can have these nice camera changes and stuff, and then record this in OBS, and it's still 24 frames per second, 1920 by 1080, and it's still pretty good, high quality, but not taking as much time as like just, doing a screencast on my computer and then recording on the camera and then pulling both of those footage in together and then deciding when I'm, all that stuff in Premiere Pro. So that's a long-winded answer to say how remote teaching is going, but that's where it started. And I think as far as when we go to hybrid, I think I'll still take the Stream Deck to school because that's going to be a little bit easier to just like unplug and then throw in my backpack. The ATEM is going to be a little bit more cumbersome, so I'm just going to leave that here. But the Stream Deck I think will be really helpful in just running things that I need to run when I'm teaching kids virtually and in person at the same time.
I was going to say you're going to have a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
Some will be in person, some will be at home.
Yeah. So that's it. And like I saw someone post on Twitter the other day, they're like, which situation would you prefer? More virtual kids or more in-person kids? And a majority of people said more virtual kids because I felt that way too, because I feel if you have more in-person kids, those virtual kids are basically going to be forgotten about. You have 2 kids on the computer and like 8 kids in front of you, you're just naturally going to be spending more time with the 8 kids. But like I have one class where I'm going to have, a handful of students on the computer and I have 1 student there with me in person. And so really, I'm going to just have my laptop open and it's going to be a virtual class, and then I'm just going to be able to also work with that 1 student that's there. And so I would actually prefer a predominantly virtual class just so the virtual experience does not get diminished as much.
Yeah, and going back to the Stream Deck, my wife is a full-time teacher, and I'm not a teacher, but obviously I hear a lot about what goes on in the classroom and things that work and things that don't work, and I would imagine something like the Stream Deck, when you're in a virtual space, really just kind of helps with the flow, right,
Yeah.
of a class, being able to, instead of, like you said, hang on everybody, let me stop this share, let me bring this
Yeah.
in. I mean, using something like the Stream Deck, I would imagine has just been able to just keep things moving.
Yeah, it's really helpful. One of the things that I really wish was that Zoom had a separate quick key for the different types of screen share, because sometimes I only want to share audio. Sometimes I want to share my whole desktop. Sometimes I want to share just a portion of my desktop. And so like I would love if Zoom had each one of those has its own quick key. And so that way I can program, my Stream Deck so that it has different buttons. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It only has the option to open up the screen share option window. You can even bypass that, but then it'll default to just doing your whole screen, which is not what I always want to do. But it is nice when it's even ending the meeting, instead of clicking end, are you sure you want to end? Yes, you want to end, or leaving a breakout room. Those have quick keys, and you can, on the Stream Deck, you can do a multi-action function, because if you do hit the quick key, it asks you for the confirmation, and then you would have to click on it. I do a multi-action function that says do the quick key for end the meeting, and then hit enter. So that way, I click the button and then it actually takes care of both of those steps for me. So it just makes everything just faster, smoother, easier. And when you're already thinking, feel like your attention is being pulled in so many different directions, to be able to not have to divert. Wait, how do I get let me open the,
That's great.
Which my students, I asked them, I was like, when I have days that things are going kind of slowly with this, I was like, is this what it's usually like in class? Because I know most teachers are not working with a Stream Deck. They're like, yeah, usually just kind of takes a while for teachers to kind of get this up and running.
Yeah, and you hit on this a little bit, but eventually, one day we will, hopefully students will be back in the classroom full time. But what is there anything from this whole virtual learning and everything, that all the equipment you've learned, and some of the new kind of tools, or just kind of some of the fun stuff you've been able to do with Zoom and the Stream Deck? I mean, once things go back to fully in person at some point in the future, is there anything from, what are you going to be able to take from this whole experience to kind of continue to enhance the way you do your job in person, if anything?
Yeah, I would say part of how I actually deliver the content, because I remember early on, if I was teaching a lesson, if you go anything more than 8 minutes online, or even 6 minutes on a Zoom call of you just talking and presenting, you're just going to lose the students. It's very hard to compete with the internet, it's just at their fingertips. And so I mean, there's something called the flipped model classroom, which is not new. It kind of was started taking off back in maybe 2013, 2014, where teachers would record video lessons. And the idea was that the students would watch the video lessons at home, which was the lecture, just kind of try to condense it down to a few minutes or a couple videos that are a few minutes long. And then when they get to class, that's when they would actually work on the problems. And so they call it the flipped classroom, because instead of giving your lecture in class and the students working on the problems at home for homework, they can actually work on the problems in class, ask you questions, collaborate a lot more, and then just the receiving of the information can just happen at home. And so I had done that a little bit in the past, but this year I've really made more of a concentrated effort to make more of my lessons and my units kind of follow that model. And it wouldn't be just like, okay, watch these in between, our Zoom meetings. I would give them time in class and Zoom meetings to watch some of the video lessons. And then I would just be jumping in and out of breakout rooms when students have questions, or like they'd watch the video and they're like, oh, I don't really know what that means, or I'm still kind of confused on this, and I could help them out. And so it frees me up to be able to work more one-on-one with students, which is where more, I think productive work happens with students. Granted, I know that there are some students that are not watching the videos, but there is a website called Edpuzzle where I can assign a video, and the students have to log in with their email to view it, and then it shows me how much of the videos they have watched.
Nice.
Which is really nice. It can be like, hey, we've been watching the videos for 20 minutes, and Edpuzzle says you haven't watched anything yet. What's going on? I was, So that's been helpful, and at least just kind of checking in with students a little bit more. I think even after we go back to normal now and what's nice is when you record these videos, you can continue to use them year after year. And so now I think I'm going to be doing that a little bit more. Because I don't want to just go back to kind of doing kind of lecture kind of stuff, even when we're in person, because that's just going to be so boring, for the kids at home. It's the most boring live stream that you've ever tuned into. And so just kind of make the time that we have together just be more problem solving, more collaborating, more answering direct questions. And of course, having other days where it is just it's not just a video practice, but we do some kind of group work together. So I think just that model, it's the more self-directed, self-paced model for the students, where they're kind of going at their own pace through this content, watching these videos, and then me just kind of learning the best way to support them in that, and still kind of creating a dynamic and engaging environment, not just oh, I just watch all these videos and then take notes, which is not ideal.
Absolutely. And I would imagine, last thing I just kind of want to touch on, have you found, and I mean, I guess you wouldn't have kept doing it if this wasn't the case. I hope this isn't a duh answer, but, I know all kids of all ages, I mean, in school, I'm sure it can be tough to keep attention, but, have you found that some of these things that you've added, even just from the sound effects to the class to, being more efficient with the flow using something like Stream Deck, do you think that has resulted in just getting more attention from your students, or I'm sure, as opposed to, like you said, just sitting in front of a Zoom camera, or sitting in front of a camera on Zoom and just talking. Like I said, I know kids are kids, and it is, there's always some that struggle with paying attention in general, but did you see a kind of shift throughout the year when you started implementing some of this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. What's funny
awesome.
is the kids have a meme account. There's a Headwaters. Our school is called Headwaters. A Headwaters meme account that one of the students runs. And then I made it onto the meme account with showing, it was someone hitting a button, and then it just said Tom hitting the air horn button 30 times in class. And so I was all right, I made it onto the meme account. But yeah, I would say that definitely helps. Anytime you can kind of keep the flow of class going, there's just good management there. There's good efficiency. There's less dull. I mean, you think about when we are in meetings with work, and then the presenter is struggling to get something. When 5 seconds have passed, it's all right, let's see what's going on Facebook. Let's see what's going. It's and if we struggle with that self-regulation, what chance does a middle schooler have? And so I really tried my best to kind of make it as fun of an experience for the students, and something that they would want to actually, dare I say, look forward to. But and I've made videos about the Stream Deck and stuff on my YouTube channel, but even in those, I'd say this is not the cure-all for disengagement, like
Yeah.
the sound effects are fun. The sound effects do liven things up, but it's really like, how am I going to actually create meaningful work for them? How am I going to structure, time when they're collaborating in breakout rooms to be efficient and not just a waste of time where they go to the breakout room, cameras are off, mics are off, no one's doing anything, who knows what work is getting done. And so I try to help teachers kind of in all facets of that, from the tech and the fun and the interesting and the engaging side of things, but also like the deeper pedagogical things, like what am I seeing like from my own classroom or that I'm finding other teachers doing online, that's really helping to actually engage students in a time that it's been just the most challenging to engage them.
I'm sure if you did find that cure-all, Tom, you likely wouldn't have to work in a classroom anymore.
That's right. That's right. You just need a couple fart sound effects in the middle school classroom, and you are good to go.
You're the coolest, especially with the boys, I'm sure.
I know. What's funny is like the 8th graders, they'll start being like, "Oh my gosh," and so embarrassed. It's like, whatever. You guys know you love it. You know you love hearing these little sound effects.
You're turning off your camera and cracking up.
I know. I know.
Well, Tom, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but before we go, where can people find you? I know for folks watching, they can see your Instagram handle there, but for folks listening, where can people find you, find your videos, and check out your stuff?
Yeah, I am most active on YouTube. New video every Sunday, and then a live stream on Wednesday mornings at 8:30 Central. The goal of the YouTube channel is to just help my fellow middle school STEM teachers design engaging classroom experience for their kids, but as well as having a fulfilling teaching experience for themselves. And so that's where they'll find that content. It's youtube.com/GibsonEDU. And I am also pretty active on Instagram. It's at Gibson Education, all spelled out. And I do a new story every weekday about like what's going on in the classroom, what's working, what's not. And I would say those are the two places that I am most active. I put out a newsletter every Monday, and usually it's kind of like a piece of what I talk about in the Sunday video, and I kind of dive deeper in the newsletter. It's not just a go watch my video. It's like I actually talk about it in there, and it's almost like a small blog post, and then say, hey, if you want to kind of dive deeper into this, I posted a video on Sunday, so they can check that out there. So that's ThomGibson.com/newsletter. Tom is spelled with an H, THOMGIBSON.com/newsletter. So that's where people can find me.
Awesome, and I'll get all of this in the show notes, and I'll post some stuff in the comments on the social media videos. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck as you get into the hybrid environment, and of course, moving forward.
Thanks so much, Jeff. This is a lot of fun.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.